Hi, Nick. Welcome to my podcast.
Hey,
Man,
David. Thanks for having me.
my pleasure, Nick. I've been looking forward to this. Um, what I'd like to do is tell people that our podcast is called Inspiring Stories of Recovery, and if you could, please subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and also please spread the word on social media. So, with no further ado, I am going to introduce Mr. Nick Boatman, who I've had the pleasure of speaking on to a few times, but we've never really gotten a chance to sit down. And I'm really interested in hearing his story. I've read a lot about Nick online, and it's pretty inspiring. So, with no further ado, hi, Nick.
Hey, David. Good to
Okay.
talk a couple of times. Good to put a face to the name and the voice.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to scare you with the face. So, Nick, what I would first like to find out is tell me about your about growing up and with your history with drugs and alcohol.
Sure. I'm currently in my office here in New Jersey, Marlboro, New Jersey, right in the center of the state. I'm the president here at Discovery Institute, but I did not grow up here in New Jersey. In fact, I think New Jersey is one of the last states I ever thought that I would live, but here I am, three kids born in Jersey Shore Hospital, live here now, married. So I didn't predict that a couple of years ago, but then you'll see through my story, there's nothing that's predictable in my life. We just go with the flow, where the higher power takes us. My God. So I grew up in a small town in Illinois. It's called Swansea, Illinois. I'm sure you've never heard of it.
Never.
It's about 25 minutes outside of St. Louis, Missouri, right over the river. So very blue collar. I had a good childhood. Nothing big happened to me. I have one sibling, a sister that's 3 years younger than me. My mother was a nurse. My father was a construction worker. He flipped back and forth, kind of working for a family business. My grandfather owned a mobile home park that he started in the 70s with about 240 lots. And, my father worked for him and like that. He'd come out, he'd do construction. So I'd see him, coming home with concrete all over him every day. Just trying to pay bills. It was a constant conflict in my family with credit cards and money. But that's how I grew up. My grandparents were a big part of my life. And, when it relates to drugs, as far back as I can remember, I had my first experience with smoking weed when I was fifth grade, right around there.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know how I describe myself as a kid, kind of almost a little bit of an anarchist, right? I was a mischief maker. I was the kid in school that was Mr. Popular. I'd make everybody laugh. But I didn't do the best in school. I was not the example student. I got by, but I wasn't an all-star. That's for sure. I actually met my wife that I have now in first grade. I went to first grade with her. We didn't
Wow.
date. We went through school. And that's a story I'll get into a little bit later. But, alcohol was accepted, right? And especially in the middle of Illinois in a blue collar family. My parents drank. They were not alcoholics. That came from my mother's side of the family. But there's a lot of partying. People just accepted booze. It's what you did. You sat around, drove on the back roads, and drinking was a big part, of our culture there, just like it is all over America. So had my first smuggle.
But so it seems like it's all Chevrolet and apple pie at this point, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. It's
I
all,
mean, nothing out of the ordinary. A lot of people have some pretty crazy stuff. Do you realize it? Do you feel different, Nick, growing up? Do you feel different than others or just kind of going with the flow? How's it? What's your take looking back? I mean,
I did, I never really felt accepted mainstream. I was, popular with my peers, right? But school was always an issue. And I felt like I was always supposed to go down this path and be a certain way as a student. And I wasn't. I was constantly in detention. I was constantly getting in trouble. I was a fighter. I didn't really know how to handle my emotions. I had a lot of anger when I was younger, and that would come out in fights and all through high school. So, I think there was a bit of acceptance for me and wanting to be cool or wanting to fit in. I found that social scene through drugs and alcohol, and it was all fun until it
Right.
wasn't fun anymore later down the road.
Did you realize when you first started using, because for me, it wasn't like this, but did you feel different when you first started using, like you seem to want to use more than other people use, or was that, looking back, you don't see any of that back then? You didn't?
There's a genetic component to
Yeah.
this that I know later on in life, right
Because it
now,
sounds so familiar. That's why.
but I am an obsessive human
Yeah.
being. Well,
You
every
realize that back.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know that back then, right? I know
Right.
that now,
Right.
looking at my story. But I took everything to the extreme. It was either I was 100% in
Right.
or I wouldn't do it at
There
all.
it is.
And we could relate that back to school, right? If
Right.
I really loved the subject, if I
Right.
loved science, which I love science or certain topics, I would do great. If I wasn't interested, I didn't care. And I just didn't show up. I didn't do it. And it was the same way with partying and drugs and alcohol, is that when I did that, I went to the extreme, right? I'd get drunker than everybody else. I'd black out. When I do that, I'd get into dealing it, right? Take it to the next level. And that story repeated, and that's attribute throughout my entire life.
When did it start to get bad, Nick? Like, I know that, like you're talking about like excess in the beginning, but when did the incidents really happen when you start to say, maybe there's something really different about me? Trouble with the law. I don't know your story. That's why I'm asking. Trouble with the law, or, is there the stuff like that starts to come up?
Yeah, I did get in some trouble with the law when I was younger. And it's not something that I'm proud of. And again, this is through my story where I just found, some of these repeat patterns that were happening. And when I was in fifth grade, that's when AOL first came out,
Wow.
right? The internet, we had the dial-up modems,
I
right?
remember.
Be on the phone. So I found a whole subculture online, through chat rooms, and I found something called the Anarchist Cookbook. And this told us everything that you could do that was basically illegal and how to do it, right? Whether that was growing marijuana, whether that was, making bombs on there, lighting things on fire, anything you could find out on the internet. So I found this whole subculture of people that I kind of fit in with. And I found that I could create my own identity, and people really didn't know who I was, right? So I could go on there. And I got in some trouble. I ran a group called United Carters Association. We did hacking and a bunch of things with credit cards. I mean, it was really young when I was doing this. I started, like I said, in fifth grade. And a lot of that was to fit in. I thought I was more of a Robin Hood, right? And I could get after the institutions and the credit card companies and cause some chaos, but not really hurt anybody, which wasn't the truth. And when I was a freshman in high school, I ended up having the police knock at my door. I had my computers confiscated, and I got in some trouble. I had to work with them for a while with the cyber task force to catch some other people online. I was scared shitless when I was younger. And a lot of people thought that I was older. They thought that I was, in my 30s. I had a screen name called Acrux. That was my name. And it later changed to Clover. And I got in some trouble there. So
Yeah.
seeing this, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So you get in trouble. Now, when does the drugs really start to get to the out of hand, I may need treatment type of, what happens? Tell me that. Take us.
So I went really extreme on the computer side. When that happened, my parents didn't know what to do with me. They couldn't believe it. And I wasn't supposed to touch a computer for a few years. I mean, this got involved with my school, with my parents, and I was cut off from that. And looking back at it, what I did was I went in a different direction. And I found that same social acceptance through drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
And through my high school, I played football. I had surgery on my shoulder. I broke my ankle in the same year. And that's when I was first introduced to painkillers. So I was the one that would have the keg parties. I was dealing some weed at that time, and I got introduced to painkillers. That was a long drawn out thing that happened to me going into college, right? I started in high school. So many people that, around my age now got caught up in the Oxycontin epidemic, which later on I actually served on the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy case, which is, a complete 360 because I was
Yeah.
involved, right? So in college, I ended up having one of my best friends pass away in my college apartment. We were
Sorry.
together over break. It's all right. He was a great guy. He's a political science major, one of the smartest people, just very kind. And we were together over winter break, and we were trying to, we had to go get some more pills. And I hopped in his car, went to my apartment down at the university, and we used together that night. Found him that next morning, about 11 o'clock, blue in the face and unresponsive, called 911, and that shook up my life.
That
I mean,
shows up.
that was a time where, it changed everything for me. And I knew that I had an addiction a little bit before that. I had no idea growing up that there was withdrawals or that pills were even that bad, right? It was easier for us to get pills out of our parents' medicine cabinet or somebody's medicine cabinet than it was for us to get alcohol. So that's what we did. And we didn't realize the repercussions at the time. But that event shifted my life. Is one of my great friends' deaths.
Did you look inward at that point after that terrible incident happened? Did you say to yourself, maybe there, I think you were alluding to it. So, I'm not trying to jump ahead of your story, but did you say to yourself, I may need help there?
Yeah. So that day when that happened, I admitted, I was like, I need help. I told my family around me, this isn't okay. I'm not okay. I need help. The first time I knew that it was an issue was probably 2 years before that. I had a guy that would sell me pills. I was really sick, and I didn't know I was sick. I'd stay in the bathtub. I was throwing up. That was the only thing that made me feel better. And I thought I just had the flu. And actually, one of the guys that sold me pills came over, dropped a bunch of stuff off, and he told him I was sick. He goes, you know that this is because of the Percocet, because of the pills, right? I said, no way. No, I'm just sick. No, I'm telling you, man, it's because of that. So I went back, got into the bathtub, and I thought to myself, hey, maybe it is because of the pills. And I grabbed a couple and I ate them. And then what do you know? 30 minutes later, I was great again. In that moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm addicted to these. This is the reason why I feel like this. And I didn't really go, I was like, well, it's a problem, but it's not going to be today. Right. And I kept pushing forward. Fast forward 2 years when this happened with Kurt, one of my good friends. That day, police came, coroner was there. I had to deal with, the police at that time being questioned. In fact, they were, looking for somebody to blame. So they were going to possibly charge me with drug-induced homicide. And it was a very heavy time in my life. And when I went to the funeral to Kurt's parents and his brother, I said, I promise you, I'm never doing this again. I'm never going to do it. And I'm never going to put it in anybody else's hands. That's for sure, and I didn't. My parents got me into a clinic back in St. Louis, and they had this new age drug called Suboxone.
Right.
Nobody's ever heard of it before.
Right.
So I went home on break. That was over Christmas break. I said I wasn't going to stop smoking weed. I wasn't going to stop smoking weed, but I was going to stop doing the pills, right? And I wasn't going to stop partying, but I was going to get my shit together when it came to pills. So I detoxed in my mother's basement, and I went right back to college and started partying again. and living the same life. I was drinking. I was smoking weed. I didn't change my lifestyle. All right. Any of my core values, any of those things. I just cold turkey said I need to stop. Yeah. No, no, that didn't last that long.
But the cat's out of the bag. The family knows that there's a problem. You've already been through detox. So I know from my own personal experience, and I don't, I'm sure you can relate, that once you know it, it's not the same, it seems to progress at a faster pace than it did because you're aware that you have a problem. And I was, and you realize that, that there's an issue here. So what do you do? So obviously the cat's out of the bag, it gets worse. And what happens next?
Yeah, that lasted for a good year and a half where I didn't do it. Eventually, right, all my friends, everybody around me still doing it. And I ended up doing it slowly, right? And stepped it up. And like you said, you pick up right where you left off. So my disease progressed rapidly. A lot of the people when I got home from college that didn't go to college that were using with me beforehand, they jumped over to heroin. And a lot of them were IV users. I would never do that. Never. And again, from when I first started taking pills, this is 8 years later, right? It slowly gets worse and worse and worse. And it got me to a point to where the price was so incredibly high for pills. It was so cheap at the beginning. And then you end up having a $200 a day habit. And I'm seeing my buddy over here doing heroin and he's paying $40 and he can't keep his head up and it's not impacting me. So gradual progression over time is I went to heroin. And then after that, not too long after, I became an IV heroin user. And when I did that, it absolutely wrecked my life. I lost everything. I lost my family. I was stealing. I was doing whatever I need to do, all of the things that you think that you wouldn't do, right? Take from the ones that you love, hurt the people that you want, the ones that you love. My addiction came first. I had to have that. So it took my soul. And that's when my life just went absolutely upside down.
Take me to the last day, Nick. The last day that you used.
Well, I had some trials and tribulations trying to get clean, right? I went to a couple of different treatment centers.
What did you feel? What did you feel like? Was it you that wasn't ready in those treatment centers? Because it sounds like you're trying to get clean. What do you think because a lot of, people that are listening at home, I like them to be able to hear when somebody struggles with treatment in the beginning. What do you think the problem was there?
I wasn't completely ready. I wanted to be, but I wasn't willing to. I wanted to be clean. I wanted to stop, but I wasn't really willing to be honest and do whatever it took, right? I was young and I kept, it's that I'm going to do this one day. It's not going to be today, right? And I just wasn't willing to completely submit and also give up other things. I wasn't willing to stop drinking. I wasn't willing to stop smoking, change my lifestyle. And I didn't understand that at the time because addiction has nothing to do with the drugs and the alcohol. The drugs and the alcohol are a solution, but the problem is our thinking. It's a disease of our mind and our brains. So if you're not willing to change the habits in your lifestyle, they say the only thing you have to change is everything. And there's a lot of truth to that, right? So I just wasn't there. And I didn't get there until I was about 27 years old. It took me, when you say about the last day, went in and out of some centers. I got to a point where I was literally living on the streets, hotel hopping, IV heroin user, and cocaine at times. My best friends stole my last $20. I had nowhere to go, nothing. And I was like, what the F am I doing? And I remember looking in a mirror in a $30 hotel room saying, this is it. Like, you gotta do something different here. And I got to a point to where I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I didn't want to live the lifestyle I was living anymore. I didn't want to feel the way that I felt anymore. And at that time, I was willing for change. I was willing to do what it took. And I've spent so much time using, and I didn't like people telling me what to do or screaming out, go to the rooms and do this. I didn't like the rooms. I didn't like, therapy, but I knew what my best thinking got me. And I knew that I had to let go of the steering wheel. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to give myself 1 year to let go of the driver's seat, do what's suggested of me, and let's see if my life gets better. If I want to go out and use after that, or if I want to drink or do something, I'll do it. But give yourself 1 year, 1 year to put in the work. And that's what I did.
So, wow. So that really sounds like a lot of good things probably happened in that first year, right? Because you're still sober today.
Yeah,
Must have been a good year.
it was. It was honestly one of the best years of my life looking
Early
back,
recovery.
early recovery. So I ended up, my grandparents had a place in Naples, Florida. And that's where I went. I went down to Florida with them. I knew I needed to leave my environment and my
Go
state.
back to treatment, Nick. Did you go to treatment one last time?
I went to treatment one last time. Went to treatment one last time. And one of the things that they suggested to me afterwards is that I go to sober living. Now, I didn't really have a choice. I have a home. I didn't have anywhere to go, right? But I did that. I went out to a sober living and I got really entrenched into my recovery and into the community. I did everything that was suggested to me. I was part of the fellowship. I, sponsor. I did whatever it took. I live on a mattress on the floor of a sober living. And, eventually, I don't necessarily suggest this of other people, but I had about 6 months. And I said, you know what? I started managing this sober living. And I'm so involved in my recovery, my spiritual life. I said, I want to lead. I can do this better than the way that these houses are ran. We could run some really good houses. And that's when I decided to start my own sober living. So
6 months. Were you six?
it was about 9 months, a little bit under a year.
Because I asked you about the journey through, because obviously people see now, or if they're listening, you're sitting right in front of a Discovery Institute sign and the CEO of Discovery Institute. Let's go through that. Take me through the whole process from starting a recovery house at 9 months sober to Discovery Institute. I know that's a lot, but let's hear about it. I'm interested myself.
So, like I said, 9 months, do I recommend that for other people? No. Jumped in, though I was really in my recovery, and I said, I'm gonna do this myself. I'm gonna start up some sober homes. So I was able to go back with a little bit of time and convince my grandfather to give me a $6,000 loan. And I took that $6,000, and at the time I started up, I gave first, last, and security to a house that was there, a 5-bedroom house. I got all the furniture donated that was in there. And I lived on a mattress on the floor, on the side of it, and I ran the house. So I started with that, and I turned that one house into about 4 houses in the period.
Is this Florida, Nick? Are you in Florida now? Not now, at this part of the story. You're in Florida?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in Florida. And when I just opened up my second house, so I turned that into 4 houses. When I just opened up my second house, everything I went back in there. I lived in there. I ran the houses. I collected rent. I did all that. But I still didn't have a vehicle. I rode a bike. So I actually rode a purple 10-speed around, had no brakes on at all. And I would ride to the gym every day. So one of my buddies that was living in the house was a personal trainer. He would go, and we were actually going to the gym one day, and there was a hill that went down. He went down it, and it crossed through a Lowe's crosswalk. There was a Lowe's right there, went through this crosswalk that went out to one of the main roads. He went through the crosswalk. There was a car right there at the stop sign. I was going down, had no brakes. And I saw this lady look at him, and she didn't turn her head back. I was like, oh man, I went down. She crashed right into me. I Spider-Man'd the windshield, fell off, basically in the middle of the highway, banged my bike up. I had nothing. I was trying to better my life at this point. And I can remember throwing that bike and just screaming, is this what you want, God? I was so angry at where my life was at, what I was doing. And I was pretty banged up from that. And, I ended up going to the hospital. My my mom's boyfriend at the time was a personal injury attorney. I sent everything over to him. So I ended up getting about $30,000 settlement from that. I put that money back into starting up my own physician group. So I had 4 houses that I started in that time. And I started up a physician's group, an outpatient location. So one of the needs that I saw in the community was there were several treatment centers, but people like me that went out to sober living didn't have any long-term connection. They didn't have any connection for their medication management, which is a priority in recovery. If you have any kind of co-occurring issues that are going on, mental health issues, medical issues, if you don't address those, it is near impossible to find sobriety and to live a good life. So that's, no, I was just saying that's what we started up the physicians group in the outpatient. So we did outpatient therapy, medication management. We really serviced that whole community when people left treatment.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about the sober houses. So here, here we talk about a sober house, being people with like 6 months sobriety or more normally, and a recovery house. We call it over here. Were they sober houses that you had with people with longer term recovery, or was it recovery houses where they were just coming in off jail or off the street?
Oh, they were all coming in straight out of treatment, right? So we'd work with treatment centers.
Okay.
And whenever they'd complete their 30-day program, right, they'd come to our houses. So they're looking for somewhere to live, to be entrenched in the community, and to continue their aftercare plans. So that they would come to my house.
And then you see the need for more of a medication physician. So let's get more into that. Is that more like an outpatient type of thing, or is it just?
Yeah, it was real small. We just rented a real small office space. We had all these houses, and then we did the outpatient therapy for everybody that left. And, we take insurance. Obviously, people that left treatment would either have insurance or they'd cash pay. So they'd come to the houses, they'd pay rent, and they could also be a part of our outpatient location. So that started, we grew that pretty quickly because we were pretty much the only game in town that did anything like that in that area. So there was another guy that I met. His name was Tyler. This was in Stuart, Florida. The Silverbrunns were in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Tyler was in Stuart. It's a neighboring town. It's right on the water, beautiful waterfront town. So he had a treatment program that he had started. It's called the PHP IOP. So it was also some aftercare, but he had a beautiful home right on the water. He had this incredible clinical staff, and it was a great program, but he really didn't know what he was doing business-wise. He couldn't get anybody to come to the facility. And me and my partner, which I had at the time, ended up making a deal with him to merge it. So we ended up growing that in that area to about 80 beds of partial hospitalization program and 110 beds of aftercare when people would leave. So it was a large PHP IOP in Florida's gorgeous called Water's Edge, right on the water. And we helped a lot of people through there. And I ended up splitting ways with them. I sold my equity in that. I had a couple of successful businesses during that time, sold my piece of that. And I had to get into something new. What was I going to do? And an opportunity came. So my sponsor at the time, we were trying to put together a treatment center, and he went through Discovery Institute about 30 years ago in handcuffs. So Discovery's been around for over 50 years. It's a staple of the community here in New Jersey. It's 120 beds, a lot of beds. They didn't have a detox at the time. There's a lot of drug court, different things, but they were failing. They were not doing well. They were losing about $75,000 a month. They were not up with times. It was still a therapeutic community, really old treatment modalities. So what we did is we came in and we took over and did a turnaround with Discovery. So we have, since then, I've turned Discovery into 120 bed detox and residential. We really focus on short-term stabilization. And we also do a lot of virtual outpatient.
We're going to get into that. Yeah, I'm going to ask you all about Discovery because I've heard nothing but good things about the Discovery Institute. I have a friend, I live in Bucks County, who worked for you for years, Mark. He's a good guy. And I actually had a business years ago called Sober Transport, and we did some rides, and it's a top-notch place. But we're going to get into that in a second. What I want to ask you, Nick, is with your sobriety, do you ever feel sometimes it's difficult because you help so many people? You're a good guy. I see all the things that you do. You ever feel like it's sometimes difficult to manage working in treatment and being with sobriety? Have you ever struggled with that through the years?
100%. I've struggled with it quite a few times. I mean, there's points where I've struggled in my sobriety to where I don't really want to go, to a lot of the fellowship communities and share what's going on in my life.
Right. There's patients.
Not only does my, clients that I have there, but for the people in the community. So, I've felt uncomfortable at times with that, but everybody's got to find their own niche, right? There's no cookie cutter approach to this, but the opposite of addiction is connection. And the worst thing that can happen is isolating yourself. And I've done that, and it didn't work out well, and thank God, I'm still here and still good today and, didn't take myself down, a destructive path in that manner with drugs. It's definitely been challenging at different times, but I have my core group of people that I'm close with. I have some Zoom meetings that I still stay really connected. It's not the traditional, 12-step fellowship. We go by principles, right? Do some of the same things, but it's a place where you can be honest. Everybody needs a home, right? Somewhere that's safe, somewhere where they can communicate on what's going on, somewhere where they can feel accepted and welcomed and know that somebody else is going to listen, have your back, right? And give you some suggestions and look out after each other. And that's important. Some people find that in church. Some people find that in fellowships. There's a lot of different ways that you can go. Yes, to answer your question, it's been very challenging at times.
Yeah. And do you find yourself, you were talking about Zoom meetings, do you find yourself relating with other people in your position in that? Is it just regular alcoholics, addicts that are in your network of people?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. It's a little bit of everything. I'd say one or two people are in the industry, but a lot of people aren't. And I like that way, where it's not as connected to the field and right where I'm at. People from all over the country.
So your advice to somebody out there that is working in recovery right now, that just doing your job isn't a substitute for your own 12-step? Or
No, far from it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most difficult things. And I see people all the time that also struggle with that in this field, and they're still in it and they can't get out, right? Or you know that they are, but they're not there, and they feel isolated. And, we all need help. We can't do this together. It doesn't matter where you get on what area in life. Recovery, to me, I define, is the continuous act of being a better version of yourself. That's what I care about. I don't care how long necessarily you've been without a mood or mind-altering substance. I don't care what you've done in your past. I care about how you're showing up in the world today, right? Who you are and who you want to be. And we cannot do this ourselves. I can't stress that enough. Our best thinking gets us where we're at. And this is the disease. It's our minds, right? So it's a constant reprieve. It's having connection and living by core values and principles, and having people also that are going to help check you on that.
Bottom of each clip that I'm going to post on social media and on bottom of this, tell me if I'm just listening and I'm not sure what it would be. If I decide that I need help and I call Discovery, tell me about the process. What happens? Tell me about intake and how I call up, I talk to admissions. So let's go through the process. If I've never been in treatment before, or I've been in treatment.
First off, the biggest thing for people, and I relate with this myself, is actually picking up the phone and making the call. You know, it is 100% confidential when you call us. You know, we have to abide by laws and HIPAA law. So you're going to be talking to somebody that has been and can relate with your situation, that has been through their own struggles. And, we're going to get to the core of what's happening and listen and find you the appropriate care that you need. If that's not us, that's fine, right? We're an all-male facility here. So female, if you're someone else, we have relationships all over the country. The best spots, maybe you need outpatient, maybe you need detox and inpatient, maybe you need whatever that is, we're going to hone in on it and find you the resources that you need to start your journey of recovery. And if you come to Discovery, what that process looks like is doing an assessment, talking with you, making sure you're a right fit first. And then as long as you are, right, we schedule everything. It's making sure that you have transportation to get in, making sure that we're working with your families. This is a family disease. It's a big thing here at Discovery. We think that it only impacts us, and it doesn't. Addiction impacts everybody around you. And the environment that you go back to, that family support, whoever your support system is, it's extremely important that everybody's on the same page and working toward, and they understand addiction, because a lot of people don't. So we're going to work with your families. We're going to get you in. And, the first step typically is detox. And we're going to make sure that you have a safe, comfortable detox, and that, you're not people think that you're going to be, hurting so bad and squirming out on the ground and throwing up. No. We have medications for that to make sure that you're tapered down correctly and that you're comfortable, and we have a smooth transition there.
So it's important that people understand that it's important to make that call. Make that call. And what Nick is saying here, which is I think is important, is even if he's not the right fit, Discovery Institute's not the right fit, make the call, and they work with treatment centers throughout the U.S., and they will find the right place. So tell me a little bit more about how you work with families. I think that's important. People get worried, mom, dad, brother, sister, husband, wife. How do you work with the families? Is it family therapy?
Yeah. So we have, first off, if you go on our Facebook page at Discovery Institute, you'll see that we have free family sessions. We have group online Zoom sessions that families can join, just families to get support from other family members, to talk, to be able to connect. And we have that every other weekend, right? And you can go on there and see the schedule to where you don't have to be a patient of ours or connected to Discovery. If you're struggling with a loved one, go on there and you'll get support. No matter where you're at in the country, it's free. If you're inside of our facility, we are working with those key family members or loved ones. Our counselors are having some individual sessions and talking with them individually, talking with our clients individually. And then we're also having family sessions to where whatever the disconnect is or the things that need to be worked on, we're addressing those head on, because what we're looking at is clearing the path of the past and figuring out, a new healthy way to move forward. And treatment, typically 30, 60, 90 days. That's a small drop in the bucket in the big picture. When you get out of treatment, it is so important to have the right resources, the right connections, and the family. We make sure that they're a part of that and bonded together.
Yeah. A lot of people probably, and it's a good point, a lot of people probably get concerned because of money and insurance. Can you tell us about that?
So we have a couple of different programs. We have our private program. We have a Medicaid program. If you live in the state of New Jersey, no insurance, no money, doesn't matter. We can help. It doesn't matter what your circumstance is.
Hey, that's good.
If you have money, if you don't have money, if you're a male, you're female, what your age is, demographics, none of that matters. If you make the call, we have a home and resources for everyone.
Okay. And so tell me about why 30 days is normal stay, or there's no normal amount of time?
We don't like to put a date on it, because really treatment shouldn't be cookie cutter, right? It's individualized, and it depends what the physicians are going to weigh in, right? The medical staff is a huge component of this. and your clinical staff. So whatever you need is going to be suggested to you. And depending on working with insurance companies, sometimes they can constrain that on how many days that you have. But we're going to work with you for as long as you need that. We got some really cool things in here, some new technology. I told you a little bit about that, Papa Wellness, and that the company that we just launched. And that's, our goal for Discovery and our purpose is to be a pinnacle in the addiction treatment field. And our purpose of Papa Wellness is to revolutionize behavioral health. So we're going to make sure you're connected.
Okay, so what about, so you were talking about sober living a bit back about your sober living. Do you have sober living centers?
We work with them in the community. So we have a lot of sober livings that we're very connected with. So you'll get different suggestions. We have a whole discharge team and your clinical team that'll work with you, and you're going to be given options, right? There's going to be suggestions, but you're in the driver's seat on where you want to go, what you want to do. And we have some very close places that we work with that we know are top notch.
I read that you do a lot of scholarship work and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, we're always having, somewhere around, we got a lot of beds. So typically about 5%, somewhere around there, of scholarships in the building. We did a campaign a couple of years ago with Mike the Situation. So from Jersey Shore.
Nice.
He's an alumni of ours. And as you know, today he just wrote a book. He's doing phenomenal. I think he has 5 years now. We did a lot of work with him. Wow. Afterwards. And we did a scholarship campaign where he gave $1 million in scholarships away for people throughout the country. But like I said, call us. Doesn't matter your situation. We're here to help people more than.
Okay. Before we'll wrap, is there anything that I might have missed that you want to add to are out there now that might be struggling? We touched on people that work in recovery. What else would you want us to know? I mean, we're interviewing you here.
I guess what I would tell somebody is everybody thinks, including myself and so many of us, that we're different, right? That nobody's going to understand what we've been through, what we're going through. And I'm telling you, there is millions of people out here that struggle in the same way that you do. The circumstances might be a little bit different, but the same core issues are there. And this is a disease. Some people will fight that. You make a choice to pick up the first drink or drug, right? But once you get to a point, it's not a choice anymore. We know that there's a genetic component to addiction. There are certain genes that we can quantify risk on. They call it GARS, or a genetic risk. And we can actually tell with your DNA how high the likelihood is that you will struggle with some type of addiction. So there's a genetic, there's nature and nurture, right? There's your environment portion of it, but there's also a genetic portion of this. So if you don't address it, I promise you, it's just going to get worse. This is a progressive disease that will get worse over time. And it's just like any other disease, we have to treat it. And it's okay not to be okay. Lots of us, we're human beings. We struggle and we take substances to fill holes, right? But as I said earlier, the core issues is not about the drugs and the alcohol. It's our thinking. Why are we doing what we're doing? And we have these loops and these repeat patterns and this obsession on these things that we do. We have to go in and do surgery on that, take that part out, because there's a spiritual and mental component to this that has to be looked at. You're not just going to take away the drugs and the alcohol like me and think that I'm okay and go back out there. I can just do this and just do that. I'll just drink. I'll just smoke, or I'll just stop this and go this way. I promise you, it'll catch up in the long run. So we're here to give you the tools that you need.
Nick, you are truly inspiring, and the work that you're doing and helping people. I mean, it's just great. There's no better thing than giving back. And, a person like you that can give back in such great numbers is truly, truly incredible, Nick.
Thank you.
I want to thank you.
I'd love to talk about Papa Wellness a little bit.
Yeah, please.
We talk about these things that we're doing in the field right now, right? And I'll be 100% honest with you. most treatment centers out there are very much alike. We offer talk therapy and, medical, on the detox and stabilization side. But this field needs innovation. This is the number one epidemic in the country right now. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody knows somebody that's been impacted by drugs or alcohol or mental health. And we haven't had the innovation since Suboxone. So what are we going to do that's different? And this is where Poplar Wellness was born. We launched a new company that's in the tech space, in the behavioral health space. We're a software company, and we take the latest and greatest in technology and plug it in to treatment. One of the things that we do right now is we offer wearable watches. So when you walk into our detox at Discovery right now, you're going to be given a wearable and you're going to be given a watch. They'll go on your wrist, and we monitor real-time heart rate variability and oxygen saturation. So all of that is projected onto a screen in the nurse's station. Our medical director, can see this. Anybody can see it from anywhere. But what that does is it gives us eyes and ears on you at all times. So if there's a seizure, if there's, a medical condition, we saved somebody the other day that was, about to have a heart attack, and he did. And we caught it beforehand. There's over 4,000 overdoses a year inside of treatment centers. And that statistic came from 2016. So this is patient safety that we do. And we're also we have a new wellness wearable coming out. So everything that you can track on an iPhone or Apple Watch, an iPhone watch, we can do on our watches. So we have ECGs on there to where we're looking at the heart. We're looking at your sleep. We're looking at all your biometric data, and we're able to, the goal is to get in front of things before they actually happen.
Do I have to be in treatment to do that, or do people outside treatment wear that?
Right now, what we're doing is we're in 12 different centers. So we have them in our center, and it's directly with the treatment centers currently. We are in the future going to be launching this to the outside, and that's with the new wellness wearable. And one of the things we're testing, and one of the gaps that we're trying to fill right now in treatment, is long-term care, treating people for life. How do we do that? Because 30, 60 days, like I said earlier, is just a drop in the bucket when somebody's been using for 20 years and they're going back out. So we have an app that's in the App Store right now. We haven't, like I said, we test everything that we do here at Discovery Institute. So this is the home of the innovation and technology that no other centers have. We bring it in here, and once we've worked through all the kinks on our software, we've worked through it, then we release it to the outside public. So
would a treatment center be somebody that would be interested in that? Because I want to put that link up also, Nick. So if I'm a treatment center owner, or I work at a treatment center, that would be something we could reach out. They would be able to reach out to you about getting into their treatment center, or is it just a beta now?
No. So we're in treatment centers right now. We are marketing this to treatment centers. Primarily, this is for detox and residential facilities. And we're also using it in sober homes, with some sober homes. So the watches have a geofence on them too. So, for example, in my detox, somebody's leaving that area, right, when they're not supposed to, or they're going somewhere else, we're going to be alerted, and we know. So it's just having real-time eyes for your health and patient safety.
I guess you continue to analyze the data too, and you're able to predict some type of trends. Is that
we're all about data, and I think this is an extremely exciting time to be in healthcare. Technology, as you guys know, with AI coming out and all the advances. I was just at the Artificial Intelligence Healthcare Symposium out in San Diego, and what they have coming out from the tech world in healthcare is wild. But it's for every other sector of healthcare. We're not focusing on mental health and substance use. So with the data, we have a partnership right now with Rutgers University, and we're working with their addiction medicine department. We have iPads when you come in here to where we're talking about how you're feeling, what's going on with you. So this is de-identified, and it's soft data is what they call it because they're manually entering it. And then we have the hard data from our watches, our sleep. I have a lab, so we do blood work. We're getting into genetic work, and we take all this information. And then the goal is preventative algorithms. How do we get in front of things before they actually happen? Because I believe that we can revolutionize behavioral health, and that's our purpose. And the way that we do that is through technology and data right now. And I believe that we can know people actually better than they know themselves in the moment. So it's about empowering people. How do I give you the information? How do we give you the information so you know, oh my God, my body doesn't metabolize this well, it doesn't handle this, or, these are my genetic risk scores, and this is how I'm sleeping. All these things are impacting my health. I'm not sleeping well and getting up multiple times, or maybe there's a medical issue. We want to get in front of those things and empower you so you know how to better treat your body, how to tweak it, because that's health and wellness is a huge portion of my life. Like, I get IVs, I get my blood work taken, every quarter. I'm making sure I'm taking my vitamins and my supplements. And that's where I'm at now in my life, because recovery is about the continuous act of being a better version of ourselves. So how do we advance that? How do we advance this field? And it's about empowering people long-term to know more about their bodies, their selves, and to prevent triggers and actions from happening that aren't good. Because the relapse happens way before you actually pick up a drug. There's little tendencies that start to happen. You start to veer off. Maybe things not right. Maybe you're not feeling good. So we want to say, hey, this is going on right now, and you got to pay attention to this. Look at it. And we're connecting that right now. We have an app. So one of the things we're testing out right now in Discovery is you'll have our wellness wearable. We have your blood work. If you tune in, we can also do genetic testing, right? To tell you what you're genetically predispositioned for, how your body handles certain things, and tell you more about yourself. Now, one of the things we're working on is when you leave treatment at Discovery, we give you an app. You're also going to be given a wearable. So this wearable connects to the app, not only to our wearable, but we connect to iPhone watches, Whoops, Garmin's, you name it, it connects to our app. So then when you leave, we're creating a custom care team around you. So for example, we have in there, you can see it's a full telehealth and telemedicine platform. You can see a physician to continue with your medication management. You can see a therapist. Wow. You can see your alumni director that's going to inform you of any events or anything to stay connected with your treatment program. You're going to have a whole care team around you. You might have your primary care physician because maybe you're a diabetic, right? You need to keep that in order. You can see these doctors right there live on the screen. You can get prescribed medication, can be sent to your local pharmacy, and we're trying to connect people for life on there. And you have more options, right? And that's the beautiful thing about technology now. Go to the session, go in person if you can. But if you can't, right, it's right there at your fingertips. Not everybody has that luxury. So you have this whole care team around you. You have your wearable information, you have your blood work, you have your biometric data. And that's the goal, is preventative algorithms to alert you and empower you to become the best version of yourself.
That is very, very interesting. What were they thinking next, right? Sounds like you're getting there. Nick, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to put all your links up on our clips, and I hope that I learned so much here. I hope you got a lot out of it too. I know you did the story well. I really appreciate it. And, if you're out there looking for treatment, call Discovery. Nick, they'll help you, whether you're in state, out of state, however you can do it, they'll help you. Nick, Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.